Yamamu nyina adwuma makwa ba United Television sunnie ye da masese mu fidie na to ye no mo telefi sabira kwapem se ebebo edu Bawku ye ka se bo aye nsaka no na ye de so mo no de twato ene de na midi de agya kwabena ne abena be yi nya no ye na ye ba be so mo na ye ka se bo no de di mo akotiri bi ni se ne da mampani mahama o se ade yo de to de mu se ye kuya ye no Ghana ha aya bibi ato ape no wobesisano nti wadane di ne de na Bank of Ghana omo monetary policy no say mo ba beye nhwehwemu mapa ewum ahwekwan a omo betimi aye no na aboama inflation akosoa akofo ene ibedi nkoma fa Bawku nsɛmsɛmi ho ekame ase bia nyama ne keke kɔ no ya aginsɛmu ye bisa se ɛde mpa na hye wonte yetumi ntusu susa no so ye betumi aye ho bibia ma na ye ne manimu ye ana de aboamanfo enkwa ana fa japade ho ban ana na fenso ekoku ahodo mekyeresi yeso sahodo no akasa edi atodwa se ebibememu hanom se omo besese amahodo ne makwan se de ebeya ye betimi nya akwanya edi akoniaba ewo amahodo mu na abo amadwadie ne niema ahodo bi no etumpo ensemika ho ana yede bremafe kasebo no emunsam nie mampani John Dramani Mahama ebra na wo pre se Ghana for beto abama na bare mampani no what to ja echirim se Ghana for na adom so abama no man be mampani ade ba ko be ye ne se yekua wi abere bia no ye no se ebi sutobre na ye jai na so no te kwa ya bosome no miensa na ne tetete sa no ye besesam na ye na afemu no nyina na eno ena ne dai wada na di ewo enkraha watu ni din se National Agribusiness Policy empenyefo akwase bi eyoman yi akuafo titiri wo mamu ni nyina mu afi asoafo ene wo mu a ebeboa me yetibidi sa dwumadi ho edwuma.
The theme of today's dialogue, Resetting Agribusiness for Inclusive and Sustainable Industrial Growth, is timely and very relevant. It calls for a bold rethinking of how we cultivate, how we process, how we distribute and export our agricultural products. Many industries remain uncompetitive, struggling to sustain capacity utilization above 30 to 40%. This cannot continue. To reverse this trend, we must significantly improve the supply of quality raw materials. This is indispensable to achieving full-scale implementation of our 24-hour economy initiative. Our agribusiness strategy must therefore be integrated with industrial policy, logistics, and export development in mind if we are to realize our full national potential. I'm pleased to note that despite inheriting a distressed economy, we have stabilized the macroeconomic environment through prudent and frugal management. My passion for agribusiness development is rooted in the legacy of Asajifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, Ghana's first president. He envisioned creating agro-industrial zones around the Volta Basin, where agricultural raw materials would be processed both for domestic use and also for export. We must pick up from where he left off with courage and clarity. It is in this spirit that my government is implementing key programs such as the Feed the Industries Initiative, Rapid Industrialization Initiative, and Accelerated Exports Development Program. These initiatives, led by the Ministry of Trade, Agribusiness and Industry, form the foundation of the 24-hour economy policy and are designed to unlock massive potentials across multiple sectors.
A monetary policy committee ewo yisika krabia bata Bank of Ghana omo ashase nhwehwemu afa insihu a aye omo de masika krabia hodo eba wonchen ebeje besia samra ye kasa di insihu no 28% ohanchechemu aduonu wotwe na businesses ahodo ni sika krabia hodo no ehwe ani mu se sa nhwehwemu omo ye review no ebe yanka rate no omonte so se de be betimi aboa mo so mo ba beje besia hu nsihu no be ye kuma bi na so ni nyina mu no omo hwe se sa nhwehwemu omo ye omo nkonko pe nsihu a omo de ma wo mo a ebe ma ye inflation asese eba fom no ebe kana ma na kosoro biem edunti ama amrado a woda Bank of Ghana ano Dr. Johnson Esiama ediato committee n'anim se bibi omo ye bi omo ndwena oman ne so ho ene oman ne sikasem se de be ya inflation ame adom aba fam no emu ensan empeja.
7% of GDP and actual expenditures coming in 14.3% below target. Furthermore, colleagues, Ghana has recorded a rare 15.76% reduction in public debt stock in the first half of the year, bringing the debt to GDP ratio down to 43.8%. These outcomes, colleagues, signal a credible path to debt sustainability and a credible path to macroeconomic stability. So as we commence our deliberations, members of the MPC, the question before us is clear. The question is whether the current macroeconomic configuration warrants a recalibration of our monetary policy stance. With inflation expectations more firmly anchored, external buffers significantly strengthened, and public confidence improving, we must consider how best to support this recovery without compromising the hard-won gains in stability. And we must be aware, colleagues, of the risks going forward, such as a resumption of exchange rate volatility, crude oil price could increase, and the potential impact of some taxes to be imposed within the context.
Yetu akasebo no sana yeko mrasebedwam ene dom ko mrasebedwam ayen sechrofo enhyiemu na asante achim central mrasebedwani ununyamfo anyimadu entwi ena ekasaye wo mo kire se ade a attorney general ye no wo mo hodwurom yi papa ene se owura kwabenadufo Dr. kwabenadufo on UniBank ensem so meku pie mu court a ye ka ho asema bepim sa bire no attorney general kire se asam no die kire bi wa anya de betu anti wahwe asan eno na donkuma kire se eye bibia anhye de ntwa yi kwaranti sa attorney general pen toton pen no a sajina si na wasi no wantwe nsan anya sa wamone no ewobika.
In the end, UniBank was rendered insolvent. It is instructive to note that these criminal activities were uncovered after the revocation of license of UniBank and the subsequent appointment of a receiver by the Bank of Ghana. Consequently, the charges of fraudulent breach of trust, money laundering, among others, were brought against Dr. Kwabenadufo and some 7 others. I'll say 7 now because you know what happened. There were 8 others. There were 9 accused persons. But when this Attorney General assumed office, he freed 1 Dr. Esiama, and that is why they have it as 7 others. So I'll keep it as Dr. Dufo and 7 others. Ladies and gentlemen, in view of the above, Ghanaians, including us, the minority in Parliament, have since been wondering the legal basis for the entry of a nolle prosequi in the suit under reference by the learned Attorney General, and therefore we deem it appropriate to raise questions produced below for the Attorney General to answer for the benefit of the good people of Ghana. The next question, or question 3, that I may want to ask. Transparency, as indicated in the press release, demands the learned Attorney General to explain to Ghanaians the principle of 60-40. Ladies and gentlemen of the press, once a nolle prosequi is entered by the Attorney General or the prosecution, we need not find out, and we don't need to find out questions. But he chooses to, if you read the press release, he chooses to justify why he had done that.
Oswafo a wɔhwɛ atemu nsɛm so Dr. Dominic Ayini opanyin akyerɛ ni nti a kane soafo a na ohwe sikasɛm so Dr. Kwabnadofo ɛne nipa nso kayi bi ɛka ne ho masɛm no ɔmo ayi free court na wɔkyerɛ mu sɛ court no ɛma no nhyehyɛeɛ bi a ne nyinaa ne sɛ obetue sika agyapadeɛ ne sika bi ebedi ne nsɛm nyinaa yɛ ka bomu a ɛyɛ 2 billion Ghana cedis no obetuatua na wapene so so obeye ne sa na samra ye kasa ikura no oguso a otuatua ne kakra no nti na asem no omu ayi afri asem dibia ne ntie kwan a yesoafo yi ekiremu e de chenso ntwerefo.
My fellow countrymen and women, in March this year, the lawyers for the UniBank directors and shareholders approached me with a proposal of their clients' intention to settle their indebtedness to UniBank. In response, I convened a meeting on the 25th of March with them, representatives and the receiver of UniBank, Mr. Ni Amano Dodu. At the meeting, it became obvious to both parties that a reconciliation of UniBank's account with the Bank of Ghana should be conducted. Therefore, I authorized the receiver to engage in the reconciliation exercise with them to determine the full scope of UniBank's exposure. I directed that the parties adopt a holistic approach that combined liabilities under both the criminal proceedings and the ongoing civil proceedings because they were obviously interrelated in order to reach a unified resolution that will bring closure to all related matters. The objective was to assess the feasibility of a comprehensive settlement. The charges in the criminal case against the accused persons involved a total amount, and this is very important, a total amount of 1.2 billion Ghana cedis, not 5.7, as is being bandied about from certain quarters whose names I would not want to mention. Whilst the civil case involved a total exposure of 5.7 billion Ghana cedis. Now, ladies and gentlemen of the media, if you conduct your research in the High Court, you'll realize that the receiver subsequently amended the writ of summons and the statement of claim and revised the civil liability down to 2.8 billion Ghana cedis. Okay, so that is on record. That's a public record, and whoever wants to contest this is at liberty to go to the High Court and then, do so. It is important to state for the avoidance of doubt that the total exposure in the criminal case is part of the total civil case exposure. In other words, the 1.2 billion is not in addition to or on top of the 5.7 billion, which was revised down to 2.8 billion. The 5.7 billion was made up of the following. That is from the initial, stage of the case. 2 billion being loans and advances which UniBank made to related and connected parties. 3.7 billion being payments made on behalf of or on the instructions of the accused persons. Included in A and B above, however, was an amount of 2.1 billion, which was alleged to be fictitious loans, to have comprised fictitious loans and fictitious transactions booked by UniBank prior to the placement in official administration. During the reconciliation exercise, the accused persons objected to the inclusion of the 2.1 billion on the grounds that the amount did not involve any direct cash outflows which could be recovered. The accused persons also objected to the inclusion of placements of 0.3 billion, that is 300 million, made to Unisecurities. Now, Unisecurities is a Securities and Exchange Commission regulated, not a Bank of Ghana related company that had been placed in liquidation and for which a claim had been filed with the official liquidator. In other words, the money was to be recovered. The recovery of this amount, the related company that had been placed in liquidation had been filed with the official liquidator. The recovery to with the official liquidator of that entity. In summary, the above matters led to the revision of the previously reported exposure of 5.7 billion down to 3.3 billion.
Yet, Yakasa Warsana, ye Koda so Attorney General say, Dr. Dominic Ahine said to Judge Rimuse. A year oko answer lawyer nino, I saw Kobe some mokola, Ghana Law School, I be home some whinyain. Was it sa mokola no, omu bitrem na one day in social for fraba, and no bit to me a boy pa, send a bay will be beer up a soil lawyer nino, Ubinya Hokwine, aquatran social, so passing qua dear. What you mean, Akoye lawyer ni, and somebody to Jawa Brana, one and Central for aiding Como.
We are going to reform legal education in such a way that access will be expanded. Okay, so that currently we have thousands of LLB holders who cannot get to, to become lawyers because they cannot enter the Ghana School of Law. All right, we want the bill that I have drafted and which is will be submitted to cabinet next month, is to the effect that we are going to literally abolish the Ghana School of Law system. All right. Basically, what we are going to do is that you will have 3 years of legal education to obtain your degree, that is the LLB. After obtaining the degree, the LLB degree, you now do what we call either the clinical legal program or the bar practice course in the university where you got your LLB for another academic year. And then you write what we term the National Bar Exam. Okay, so everybody who has the LLB and who has taken the bar practice course in their school, in their university, all right, will be entitled to write the National Bar Exam. So it will be like what the accountants do, all right? Once you qualify to write the examination, the Chartered Institute of Accountants will...
A coalition of CSOs in Migration Africa, Omuyuku, na omo ediato ebibima impanyufo ahododo Bawku ani mo man Ghana ye ka ho bie se omo besre se afi 2018 ena omo edi AU Africa Free Movement Protocol no eba ye na akoye se ama ahodo ni bia bibima ni bi no emfa nya adwuma enunti se bia wo kwa bibima bi mu akodi dwa akoye adwuma no aya ne ho akonya edin pint omo so omo besre se ebibima ahododo Bawku man Ghana ye ka ho bie no yemfa sa enhyehyeye no enya adwuma se de be ya ebetimi aboa na edwadie titiriu emu apejamaye.
The AU came out in 2018 with a proposal to have a continental free movement protocol, but that protocol requires at least 15 member states to ratify it for it to come into force. As we stand now, only 4 member states have ratified the protocol. So within Ghana, with support from the German government, the MEG project, which is ensuring that migration is a topical issue and is well supported, the civil societies in Ghana came together to form a coalition. So we now have the coalition of civil societies on migration in Ghana. And this effort is a workshop, is a training workshop, which is supposed to support civil society members to lobby government, to advocate for the ratification of this free movement protocol. And the same is being done across the continent with like-minded civil society organizations to get a minimum of 11 additional ratifications from member states.
The security problem, security. Then say of ECOWAS free movement protocol, security.
Abusiafo ejina hani ahome kase wono so ye ba ye bedi enkomo eye bokon sensemi bambo nsem a entimi engina ye asomdwe entimi nkoso wo honom ne ye kwaba na ye di ho nkomo.
Alishima me da masese wunya bretwen ma yekoto nkrafe bra so se yedi nkomo yenyine ni de yekoso ewo boko no na ekame ese bibia duru no ano eya yeshi esanse de enim ani se du ba bia na nipa bonfo ibi akotwa kwan mu edi nipa bia mem edu ba bi nso a penfo ne de kom so na se de be konkwada so ewo sukuu mu sen kwada wo sukuu mu na nipa bonfo be gbo wura sukuu akotwe nkwada ni bia be ku omo ne de na yentan hunu papa ana sentan si ana si bimpo si da nanso we dia baba si ama sese bibia ne makeka ekono eni ya hyehyehye me no kase ya de kafi oto omoso ukwohye fi awia no mienu a age ade chi no nsia ansa na wasore apia bonten na bibia duro no em se adno den kakra enti yebedi ho komone ahwe so kwa mpa be ne betumi afa so ama de koso oboko no yentumi anya mfi okura mpo a ebetumi abre nase ama boko asanfa ne to mapa efra nti enne anadwo ye ne bambo mu mpanyimfo bedi nkomo na fe no chi aba studio na fe ya hwe kwa nsa kwa amanyosem nti no ye dan ya sese wo mo so ye no mudi sasem no enkomo nti enne Benjamin Asare e o mebi nkom so wono na obesi MPP anan ena fe nso no Obed Opintan ono so NDC amayoku no wono ena BBC o manan to mienu ena ewe studio medam asema makwaba ne momre nso enti ebrepo bi bakwa amano so yenya omo a na ye ne o makasa e wo telephone so na de omo wo ka no be ka bambo mpanyifo no enim difo no na de ombeka no yati na yatumi ahwe na ansene baba studio ni nko ma no so na ni Emmanuel Kuti ni eni nkomo ye kan bambo mu nsem a wabe yimotime ka memawajo na minim se dia ekoso obokwi ye di hu nkomo mperempi ba wo hwe level aduro se enkwada wo sukuu mu na ye be kwakofa wo mu wo dormitory se classroom na ya be ku omo saa wa bonten so no eden na wo a wabi wo bambo mu no e kire wo
Yo, yes. I'm in for Wakunja Sunachia and new production team. My co-panelists on our studio, both the NDC rep and the MPP rep. Ghana mine in any the Kusasis and the Mamprecious. Now, I'm in for Wafidi and Suna honor the memories of the students on Makomu ya say. And acknowledge the pain of their omwapra and their omo sebi the quality of my displays. Me feel say, Eja, I say you move beyond the headlines. Now you examine the shifting security dynamics in Bawku, especially share the implication of government new post says it's how much shifted from peacekeeping to peace enforcement. A picture now means the feuding factions, the Kusasis and the Mamprecious. Says your home baby a true. Killing students, innocent students, no. Me feel say unfortunately brave. Because Sam Kwalawi no Omu dachi. And what is their crime? Just learning so that Ochina they can be useful to their country. And they've been caught up with this crossfire of conflict. Now social conflicts now achedodo. And you ask a very legitimate question. A say students are almost idea no more become in the name of chieftains. And also students almost come on a legal secondary school. There you say omunya kusasis, omunya mampresi, omunya bimovers. Okay, I'm stepping in quickly to impose curfew. Okay, there are some from Beba. because Sasa Wenke invited Bimobes into the conflict. Now, conflict in the north. It is tribal in nature, so it could have escalated. Until now, many main for security consultants and analysts almost say step up by fire. No, Oman to abandon for ye. Me feel say that was the right in abandon ye, except that they needed to communicate to the citizens of Ghana, especially those in the Kefu area, to understand what peace enforcement is. Now, Eja, we share UN Charter, Chapter 6, especially we share peace building is about the consent of the feuding faction. To say, Kusasi name and preach for Omukuno, Omubeba Betia say, Sebi, the way to go is through mediation. And answer Omubetinasi, no more Jojo, to disagree to agree.
So, you know, what my memory mwakakra, you want chat say, through mediation, and I say, Ombetinasi, a Jojo. Yedim so, Asante Hene, at such at first, two factions here. It's like there was progress, Ananka. Sakre biba all of a sudden na we akwakoba no nipa bi na se baabi na wo madwane se ye masundwe e mama boko ho ana se ye dey because wo hwe the way na ma ne kona I said the yakobo krofo bi power bonti so me ne bi etete sa
you always ask very excellent questions beboa ye chief for. On say mediation, that is the peacekeeping under the UN Charter. And Ampa, no Otunfo was almost getting to the bottom of the matter. I say Yambo Otunfo Abasupa because this time, one year to say the Bondiano, or Yenu in a way that Obia Nimna de Koso. But I'm sure say one of the factions felt that. And you know, in conflicts of this nature, you want crophobia from conflict profiteers. And today, so as I was kusase hineno, it was a serious drawback to the peace process. And only 2 days later, there was a retaliatory killing in the same Ashanti region. And then from there, Yenya student attacks both in Nalergu and Bawku. So, on say peace enforcement. You see, I might say, Oma move from peacekeeping to peace enforcement. It stresses you see, no. Yentimi who say they will run the two concurrently. Obroni Becker says side by side, and Nancy peacekeeping no maja. Peacekeeping no maja. It means that the mediation will come to a stop now. So a peace enforcement is the use of force without consent. What you are saying?
Yeah.
And USHA under the UN Charter, if you want to use peace enforcement, it has to be typically under the UN Security Council mandate. Now, question here, Bisani say, Ghana is adopting this, the peace enforcement posture internally. So we must ask, under what legal framework? Who authorizes and oversees it? How are civil liberties protected? Or when I mean say abino by their communication, because the people who are affected by this sudden change of posture by government, advance communication into me more what is expected of them. Because in a democracy, the need to know is enshrined by the Constitution. So, we share all of these are human security versus state security. Civilian lives, any education must not be casualties of conflict response. Until some of us will say government has been heavy-handedly undertaking this activity. it's like using a sledgehammer to kill an ant. And so we also want to know the closure of the schools, the best say a temporary measure because very soon a be better exams.
Yeah.
So the question here be say, what is the long-term safety and reintegration plan for the students?
What do you mean? Bibi say, ye can no ye hwe one more ade no etsi omukuru mankasa boko ho no. Are we saying say ye nim ni pesha de ekoso nachi? I beka say we don't know those behind it. I say ade no mo ya anti no mu ana to mu gban. Ye nim ni pesha chire ni performance sa trouble ya e ma so dwe ma munu mu ankakra kakra didi ya ba bebi ansese e ba no. Don't we know them?
Eja aban peso omu ho a omu be hum. Omu what that capacity to be able to investigate and know the people behind it. Now, Ohun say, the Bawku conflict will be seen in any impunity. Because we Kokunwe, not one the other side in your justice. The next time, Ebanisa, what would they do? They also go and retaliate. And that is what has happened and has brought us this far. Look at this way, Aja. Capital punishment is still under our status, Meboa. How can someone kill somebody and have his life intact and be working? And so, Obi, no Uchino, no Udinifa Mrasu, no Mradina, now you're locking it up, and I say the new call firing squad. It doesn't matter you are Kusasi or Mamprisi. Crime is crime. What you say? Okay, so they will think about doing it again. They won't do it. So, Ohono, yet the Subono Bema government, they must enforce the law and treat some of these things as crime. Only say, chieftaincy conflicts now. Usha Ghana, that is one single threat to our fledgling democracy. Across the country, sure, Oti region the SCA, also Omukun student, Bisu Oho. That student offer your crumbs sabuba, me uncle ba, Obi awa free sabuba, ne papa mo aye yisi obesin ade, and out of this senseless chieftaincy conflict, next 3 bullets, so they said, Akokuno. Assad now, has actions been taken? No. They've not been able to arrest anybody in connection with that. Oh, do you think that they will do it again or they will not do it? And to invest politicians, and I'm happy that Afre NDC and the NPP, politics
okay.
We are losing very innocent lives. Now, the underlying and structural conditions that give rise to some of this conflict. Until we can find solution to the structure and underlying conditions to these conflicts,
all right.
And this say it's about time, say, you enjoy the kinetic form of peace building or finding a solution to some of these conflicts. Osha across the country, the non-kinetic means work because Osha, many of the chieftaincy conflicts the underlying thing is poverty. So if we can address poverty,
it's a long-term solutions. Unemployment,
poverty and development.
Okay. Okay. Me dansi. Yema fancy. I mean, say bring it. Ibedi hun komo. At appropriate time, ibenya me enough time near to me di hun komo. Yema na kutin security analyst on any din komo for sasimu. Obed mo na mo aben. We come here say. Utie ade ne se ekwa naba. I say there's no solution to the problem. Utie political analyst and expert in Yina, someone can say, see ye politics free mua. Say ye politics free mua. Meaning say political undertone be and this any man in Aba. This is one more bemo. ɛdeɛ pɔtee na musu sɛ mbutumi ayɛ de na de asomdwa ba bɛsen sɛ egu yɛ ni mu asese ɔman pa mama 5 minutes
me da say Jacob na me fa kwanya sunchia ahwefo a mo hwɛ yɛn mo gibre by this time a mo hwɛ yɛn na mo tie me chairman former chairman senior say Sunyane West wagibre pa o hwɛ me chia no Obed Fifi Daxon so me chia yeah so Bawku nsɛm me wa hu Jacob I won't say somewhere in the early 2000s. Me half free so my daddy so. I hear some kakra sorry ho. Na de me hu ye no. Nti ama won say me nam kra bonten na say me hu say motorbike. Na abon say omo de yi bi ewo omo exhaust pipe ni mu aya na eje pow I say gun no. Me nya tepe me sheki me yem ahye it is a minyate Bawku nsɛm ne pɛ na ma bisa mo sɛ enkusi da pɛn Jacob na me no I don't think there's any political undertone bia o baby o because if there's any political something sabi MPP ni NDC for say dey bia pɛ dom mo to aba man yo but what I say but dey bia yeku nipa sabi na no Kumasi dey esi we ade ne nim sanka wo Bawku ba he ye dey asem ebre open so a sabi ogusu a o ka asemi na fe ne hwe anu ye kunkofo mi nu wo honom just in the name of the case na obisa ho say sabi adan engusi da ben utie nsem na just akoye asase akoye ahinnie sabi wi ase obi no nso wadi ahinnie akwa wiye anase wadi ahinnie na akopem brebi ono da so akirebo there have been a lot of kings amaba sabi omandu obi no ko wabro 100 years wa kunya so da de wa kwa 50 years no kra no ye fa no won nkura brem Jacob na de making I mean mesrem painful Bawku painful both sizes no I think the Kusasis and then Mampusi for no omuma ye omunja bibi anto form now mon brought into consensus with Otunfo said the mayor niema asumdwe baba sisi ya curfew na ekoso no sisi a development be dey akoboko why na sabi even kwa small contractor bi so onko enkusi school dan no so enkusi nsi obeko because osuro ye ka chen so onko ye kwan sisi a osuro ontumi nko obere na wako so what I say MP sisi anyame adom manya majority leaders fend say ye MP nyame ado banko betime pushing them abrem okrumo no but look at this the ecosu ese omujai sa ye fene say bibia sabe obi to no nyimo say na asase da hojan oniwura so what I say echina bi sabe wo a wo kasa wo pesa wo ji akunya na sa wo ji we no at the end of the day no beti woni no kra wo ji edi wo si so ade chi ye na bi ato ukọ Jacob na omo me enjwe nkra ye ku omi ya na nkra ye bia na de omo ba be ye oman na enye ketwa anka de omoba be ye mo man no enye adeketwa but since they've gone like that me no I will plead with President Mahama say you should call both political parties now they should sit down and see the way forward say eye aso eye politically rooted say man for kana they should put an end to it well, me call voter regime some about 2-3 years ago a year bi na me kodu anajo me kodu no the town was basically the one no bo mama na said that is Alvanyone Nkunya and sebe kronu there was who krona I said improve to ensure that anyere ben ma ho because of conflict near the metete mu no na Jacob na ha adwen na mbisa ho say nti sebe ne ye kuhui nti ye tumi en ti asese okay wo fa wi na me fa wi anase ye nche be sere mpanyifo ene wona ka bi ewo mu asem ye de ma otumfo obi o sha ase bia nipa na wukunu de na obeje afi hu ye be ka ho asem de na obenya sika sa na de be ba oboto
ho na me de bi sa ben se ben musu mu fi aba mu che ye nkoe wuti asem mu kana political undertone frankly speaking say we obi a woni bambofo mpanifo di nkomo a wotumi ben wo mu a most of them asem mu kana say politics e shechiri politics essentially. Would you say as the largest opposition party as is more abemwe mufi abemu krebe busumi enso wenso. I didn't also say a war sabri no obekasi yenko play blame game bia say we na I didn't know just say here we need solution. I didn't know say say na sabri say na be ya esi okuma say obi ni mo bia betu bankra ha e bankra wan so na ekọ yenim enti didn't know just say here na if possible say me na make say to me enye mfi okra mpo a ye be bre na se kra ma na mo kra hu se bibia ti sapo koso okro nso
yo eja kwabra me da ose papa yi chia ahwefo na etiefo a omo agebre na omo hwe ye nyumre chia party mpanifo na ma chia menu ya pani a me no studio eja kwabra asem bi a emu yedu se meka because neka no se wan kan yi a eno na ya na ye kan politics asem no yes mejitum se amanyo sem ewumbi ase eduru mre se na se yenyina yetimi ye baako na ye twe yi amanyo sem frim na ye ka sem ne se ne esitia I think say asundwe betimi aba ebesere ye nuanom na ye no mo nofo ho no se enye nofo nko ana wo ho Ghana fo nyina wo ho bi because ye nyina ye busua baako ye Ghana a ye chichira ye Ghana enipe wo mu baako ye ni mu bia ye sere wo mu asem we ekosoro ba fam se den kra na enye tuo ne sekai no ene ye de beka eye den ya ano ne ye betena se na ye de akasem na masundua ba empanimfo no enintini ene mpanimfo eka bie wo mu wo nofo ho no omo ankasa nte wo mu ho asese ye busuafo na efrim ye ma ne ye yerenum na efrim ti ye betena so ahwe han atena ho ahwehwe han ama ye lose life se ne nipa si ko no ya tena ho amasa de we ya continue wana eja kwa bra se nwumre me kasa me ye politics a ka wanhwe a ene no ye nkwa nadwe because me de minim say ye mampani John Dramani Mahama yewura Bawku conference na ekoso no eyade obetimi aso ano eyade a megidi wo mimu say obetimi aso ano nti eso ye hu bibi because ye ejakwabra ye petumi na se ye baba mu a politicians ya yensusu nkansem akese ne di enya abra wo de potumi no wo petumi na wo sre Ghana for se ento abama no ense bia wo beka no hu se betimi ayade kase o ba nyame ya dom na tumi ne ba wo nsem wi a ho na abehu se nsem a meka yi se meka ni se ya kebeboa mempese mekomu bebre because ene meka se mekomu a ye papa John Dramani Mahama ye nua pani Mahama Yarega omu nyina e wo role to play in this matter. And they have what it takes to make sure say problems are air cost or not for nebetimi solve it. Apart from these two people, apart from Yewura John Dramani Mahama and Yewura Yarega honorable nipa mienu we omo betimi solve issue.
What can say apart from omumienu nebetimi solve? Are they the only politicians but Mampai Mahama kan so no crowd free ho. Owu Mahama Yarega na ofri ono krampo no ne fa efi manprusi ne fa eye kusasi enti no ono kwa metuma ka so no oye ehoni ankasa pa se manprusi ni eye no domo a omakum amunia se kusasi ni eye no domo a omakum amunia are they the only people omo wo ho ebetuma ka se womu na ebetuma ye other political because I think say MP for this former Dr. Tia former former vice president in financial advisor or something like that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
This is also MP.
Or MP
for
yes.
Wale.
So also the same area.
Yeah.
And so did he say, Safo nyina no any room between play aboa me yetunya solution prekope.
Apart from John Dramani Mahama president, any Yewura Yarega because president na nkasa na numutom ose abre bia MPP beba betena konwa so na Bawku issue no ayekese abre bia NDC beba betena konwa so no omo netimi solve Bawku issues yewura president John Dramani Mahama okano 27th July 27th August 2024 ose abre bia MPP ti akonwa bia so no na Bawku conference no na ayekese na omo timi so conference na no eye NDC abre a omo babam nti nyame adom omo ababam omo ne betimi aso issue na no nti na Jakwa me start na me say me kase me ye ne politics se na ye nua security analyst ne frɛ ye no wo kase politics and shashasen ampa me ne ye adwen because ensem no bi wo no me ka wa hanom anwumire ya Jakwa esoso
enti are you saying say na sam no kan ye nti na binom nso eni na afa no se wo se wo ba na somdwe ba dia ene yesu ye be ye bibi ama basabasa ya ba ho no bi ehun se wasam na kan no enye nokore
obi obeka sa asem ni bia ne sebe wadaroma me mu nipa na nimti ana na adwemu ha because you president say security apparatus wo Ghana ha nyina ehye nensa so whoever will think negative about Bawku conference in Ibiano, he has the capacity, ability to know the root of the matter. Obi a workers as him, and now Obi or Shas Yebia, yes, I didn't be a John Dramani Mahama betting me afishing nipan out. It's me so Obi betting me and Kotra baby say, because of Yera John Dramani Mahama ka say. Omuba bemu and omutimi sub Bawku conference na no ntino. Obi be kwa kwahye so ombe fuwa conference na ma escalate. Abra wote akonyom as president, the commander-in-chief of Ghana Armed Forces, our security, what baby, our intelligence, our baby, menye so obi betimi akasa asem na da. Semini anu bisa asa question also bisa intelligent question. Yes, it's an intelligent question from Jakwa, but sasana yenu anu NDC for be join dia. Then the president is not up in top of issues. Not just say security na nkasa na wodano no. Enya dia wotimi hwese niema bekoye. Because Yewura Mahama ya lega say kusase for they dare not say NDC babemu a omo be try so omo be start so omo be kontokwa under NDC. Nti mesre me say me mpese me in politics. Me dan say Yewura John Dramani Mahama. What it takes to make sure say Bawku conference na e koso no obetimi de abawie ya magana for
Obed me mpese ye be kono say dia we can we esanse so bi busu betumi aka say betumi to akurize issue bi aba say we so kan we na no so de nsam foforo e ba ntino me pese ye kono okwan e be fa so betumi solve problem no enti simami nu ntem no ba hwe say one way work no sankasa because kafi ba me amtie kafi ne bi nkame say me mitumi tire be tamampa na mekofie wo punso wo hia no sanka eti wakasa na ade ne esi e wo ho na wonim say bia asemese no so benti bi na hye akire no ade nti na wo so ntumi fa kwan bi so mabambofo mpanyifo hu nipa hye akire if truly and as a community na so corona kasa hu asemese na hye akire na se wo mo e wo opepa no etubi ntu ho na mon bi ne wo mo a adwumboni hye omutiri mu tom de ane sa somdwe ma no de na esi eye omo esan say kutin kasem bi o se onipa ni di bone no kra na ye nyane hwe na ye gyan no sometimes social videos ni bi ni dem omo ye ho na time we ya mfiem yenu ni last year omo hye buses be kai last year nkwada eko school Bawku senior high school animo ya students ya eko school omo yi students ni
krampomo
o students ni si form ama Bawku senior high school animo na driver ni no omo hye no hye ne ka ho chese niema basa
sa ka no kra madamfo basa
okay eti wo gidi say den na sese ye sabre wo mu a Bawku ho na kasankasankansa no den na sese o man kasan so ye so so bo ade bo na 2 minutes
Jakwa me das
yes sir
minia yes na share bi and then, you know sometimes politics are I can't say just to appease the people but me guys Ghana for are very well much awake our munim the ekoso me jama Ghanaians to judge whatever he said nyame adom President Mahama e dey otufu anim say onye de bombo na yen solve issue no ana me boa said years back no otu for here my survey the other issue or north or maybe it has to do with we for another conflict otu for him survey you know that long Gabon there no Gabon there no mo survey ma bibia akọ kama me wojide otu for mu say obetuma here ma bibia akọ kama but you know one say na ye kanu since ya na me hwe the DC over there or MC in Bawku say it is very like heartbreaking say since ya kwapom work curfew mu since ama niema nkoso what I say what's around the park 6 7 also 7 8 there na betimi aye by 2 o'clock na 2 o'clock say was akoshe dem it is a contractors na ye adwuma nyi so mo ye adwuma ye friend is saying whatever input to adwuma be say ye bia na they can't work because that time no from 7 to 1 no they are no betimi aye they can't do anything. It's me mesre Bawku for and I only me I played with the IGP and your friend is military no they should go in a hard way and make sure say they crack some people down in a sense that one meaning say omukọ ebo serious search wo Bawku serious search power wo Bawku any nim patemu they will get a lot of niam omudidi ewu no ombenya niam bebre agege wi a afei those are money na kitakita sawe no we get them a place we arrest them and make sure say you know omo ebedi nkomo na say am psychology psychological phobia ebe ne omo be kasa am make sure say omo hu say de omo ye say be fan impunto ye debe emma because this Bawku is far behind now impunto be because be no since school na ekọ no since be there na since fa say e ba say you can say the school be cry could be university be and say could be I think some ways August 3rd ho baby President Mahama even mama carry 27th August President Mahama can say asem enya no kre and that 3rd August the President Mahama mentioned something like say it's likely say you bet to me the region cry dey be am Bawku for but what them chana say but the course you bet to me this region alcohol the course you bet to me this region alcohol but what them chana say because one na region no one na regional RCC for name regional offices one you transfer no call no beko so on go na Bawku esa na mpuntu so nye de enkoso nti mesere mpanyifo mesere timanfo Bawku say mon dwen mo daache ho na mo so ya bɔ mo paa na ema mutuo say mo nkonkokun obi mo hye na nkokun obi na mo yemfa nka say oman no President Mahama kan bibi say nti no yen say oman no na yen ka say hey President Mahama ntumi nye no yesere mo be careful and what you are doing will not help oman. Thank you.
Ben yen hweti simami no ntem no ugidi say de yakoi amanfo nankasa no sene eso mu hunu se mo akọ 1000 years na sa 1000 years na mo ko nyina no resource papa bia amaya wankasa otena se a badwema mu no udwene ho akọ akire a ede ne yenua no maso mo ye ho sene be ya wankasa mo ba hinha
sebi o yenua no na nteme ho ase aba omo ekontokwa no omo nya nkwase afọ omo nimde na yebesre. I said there is no smoke without fire. Bibia wo hobia na say ya nhwe the root of it. Na ya nka ne se ne sitie na abojojo anan abotoyemu ama two fashions na ante wo ho ase a then eja kwabran ye di agro. Say whatever the problem is, two fashions no enye ba konya dwen no mo nka say sade na eye 3 ana 4 ena ye cha ye becha no 2 say ye 3 nso ye becha no 1.5 na wo bia nya bia masomdwe aba na ne mesere ne say politicians ntwe ye hu free sa asem num
simple ABCD
say ya ntwe ye hu free sa asem num na ye hu no say entokwa no me de me hu kohyem kogina ba bi faako a ena be ma me vote enti asese me boho e ma hotete se ne be ya efani be hu se media me dwe wo mo ho because menya vote no yesere se yenyan saade na ye ne mwa bi na MPP bi NDC yenyan saa niema no ne hu se saa fa na ntokwasi wo no so e kaga na ho na Ghana fo no nso bebre e wo honom a other regions bebre wo honom eja kwabra na wo ka se wo tie wo de
ade ne mfa ho obi enim ube free studio ho a obekọ wasem bi kura obeka kura no ebi kura na anto obi asum wasi eja kwabra tre studio aka se yetia me na kire se ne esese wono na anya bodwo no na ode aba be enti efa wo bia ho ba mostly se ne wo kan ye no ye se ne otini ja ho no onu nenim de we si hye ne fa enti ye besre eye adesrede because she ni why ye te hey ye betimi aka apart from say ye be ka kire wo mo say adwo brɛw wo mo mfo mo tuo ne wo mo nade ne nto ho na ye mfa ano ye wura opemso ninim die mu ne nyansa mu no ye de dwumadie na ma no so ontu ho anamo menye so opemso betimi aye bibia ebekwatia efan bi emefa bi nte no ho ase because our track record say dwumadie we no nyansa eburu nyansa so Solomon nyansa wo no ye de ama na otimi siesie saa niema no enti ye besre ye nuanum bokofo no omo ntwe wo no mo hu se omo ye nipa baako omo awale omo omo ma ne omo nuanum nyina ye busua ni ye besre omo ma abodwotwo emra na politicians send ye make bi emu no ye ntwe ye hu free sansem num na assemble ko a ye wura IGP ko kan wo ho no mo ka se omo mfo omo tuo ngu fam na so omo di tuo no gu fam a obaba be ye police enlistment a obema omo more slot misre se security analyst for bebre aka se sade na ye mfa nye mediation bebo am yetimi aso
so we've gone beyond that.
Yes. Enti no baby ya duro sesi ande.
We've gone beyond that.
Ya hu free mu a. Yade a omo ankasa ebetime de omo da achi ahwe omo nsem na omo atena se aka se enough is enough.
Okay.
Say ye hia sumdwe.
Medase Benjamin Sare medase na Obed Opintan also medase se onya brebaye. Na IGP de okan na twam tumfo de erukra no na eguso de denden na we kokobaye meaning say ade no ye bibi na hye akire ntine ma no yesa na momu no je na me kan say kafi no sabre ya wo kafi na kire wo awo ho ye enkire ye wa ha enti yenso ye mpane sa ye nyan kan ene mu nyina anka bade sa wo abonte na hwe UTV wo hu na so hye dem a wo hwe no ha dwene papa ma economic na bokun so ye baby e betumi aka say ye ka dwadi a because Togo nie Burkina nie enti no baby a hu hia o man pa enti mo amhye kire no ye ni mo a ye mfom nye hanam se ye papa se ni mo a ye mfa nye hanam na ye masudwem na boko sense bibia nema keka ko no innocent child o woni school usia na de boni be no waye won ti se duru se na se amanone 40 akosi buroni wo mote se Ghana ya sumdwe ne ye wona ye de boy ho safo hene no free ensan kakra na so ye nya hunu yi mo mane pare ye yo na de se bia no bia play no role na sumdwe mre sense pani se asromofu dwoa ana bwa kraman onya baby ede neto twamane aba medi de ja kwabena mene abra bayi nya no ana ye de kasebo no bremu adomdom ye nya ochina ye besen aba ya kramo ama mu nyina mo ne hwe eni de yi